close your eyes if you like, and take a slow, steady breath in and let it go. Feel the day smoothing behind you, like a soft hush of evening settling across a quiet valley. Imagine a warm, gentle light, neither bright nor sharp, just enough to see the edges of things, to make a world restful and kind. We begin in that light. There was once a house that had grown used to laughter. It had tall chimneys and wide windows that watched the seasons change. It stood with a garden that always managed to look as if someone had paused with a watering can halfway through a story and meant to come back. And so the flowers seemed to keep their best expressions, a little surprised, a little delighted, and very content. Around that house, the air held small, familiar sounds. The soft rustle of leaves, the quiet footsteps of someone walking home at dusk, the low murmur of neighbors speaking in the evening. In one of the rooms on the ground floor, two sisters sat together. The lamps were lit, their light bowed and gentle. The shadows made kind shapes on the walls. One sister read softly from a scrap of paper, her voice folded into the hush. The other listened, fingers linked in her lap, eyes gently unfocused, as though she could look at the words not with her eyes, but with the sort of seeing that lives inside the chest. They were not reading a tale of high adventure. It was a simple letter, a small, ordinary event wrapped in human consequence, news that would change the quiet map of their days. For a moment, the room shifted. The words were weighty, not heavy, but tender, like a small stone set into the path of the heart. The first sister set the letter aside and smiled with a careful, shy joy. The second reached across, took her hand, and squeezed it with gentle warmth. Outside, the garden kept still. The moon, a small curved coin of silver, leaned above the trees. The world felt larger and softer, as if it had been scrubbed clean of the day's sharp edges. The sisters shared their quiet happiness in murmurs and small laughter. There was no trumpet, no shining victory, just the steady realization that life had opened a new room for them, a new kind of belonging. The day that followed was gentle and steady. Morning warmed slowly, pulling sweetness through the window like a hand drawing curtains. In the kitchen, spices woke, and the tea kettle whispered. Neighbors offered notes of congratulations, as if each one had a small, private bell to ring. A voice or two, pleasantly surprised, pleasantly approving, drifted through the house. People who loved them found those happy words easily. Those who were distant in manners might keep quiet for politeness, but even they carried a thought, like a folded letter, in their minds. How kind that this should happen. The newly happy family sat around familiar tables and spoke of small future things. A garden to visit together, a walk to a place where the river bends, a favorite chair to be finally claimed by someone who would read in it. The ordinary fabric of life was being altered in the softest ways, a different kind of matter in the mornings, an extra laugh in the afternoons. What had been uncertain became certain, not with the clanging of gates, but with the calm of warm tea poured again and again. It is easy to think of big moments as thunder, fireworks, or drums. But there is a quieter way to change the course of life, a long series of small, steady choices, patient as the tide. Imagine two people who notice each other's small acts of care. One remembers the sound the other likes when they come home, the color that brings a gentle lift, the way a hand finds another hand at a bedside or a garden gate. Those things are soft seeds. They are planted deep, and with time and mutual kindness, become the network that holds a life. In the room I described, that network was being woven, luminous and strong, and invisible to anyone who wasn't looking closely. Time moves on, slowly and kindly. Even the most anxious hearts find themselves softened by the steady rhythms of days. A letter arrives now and then with news of friends, and each note is read with the same careful reverence as a pressed flower. A cup of tea is offered. A walk to the lane is planned. A neighbor stops by and leaves with an extra smile. Each ordinary exchange is a building block. If you are somewhere between wakefulness and sleep, you might imagine laying down tiny stones along a path that leads to a quiet place by a river. That is what everyday love looks like in a world where people choose, again and again, to be gentle. The seasons change. Imagine autumn's breath, a kind, slow exhale that loosens leaves. A path becomes blessing littered with red and gold. The sisters walk through it hand in hand one evening some months later, their coats wrapped close. There is a hush in their laughter. They notice how the light rests on the edges of themselves, warming but not pressing. They say small things that mean a great deal, about the way the wind knows your step, about how certain friends are like bright stones along the path, about how the day tasted of honey. These are the private truths of steady lives. Evenings like that are not perfect, they are real. There are moments of anxious thought, of remembering earlier wrongs or foolishness or coldness. But the tenderness that came after the earnest apologies, the reaching across to one another after an argument, makes a home feel whole. Mistakes were made, and forgiveness followed. Perhaps a long misunderstanding had once set two hearts apart. Perhaps a poor choice of words had cut a tender place. Those things do not vanish because they are forgiven. They live on as marks, like pebbles worn by the water. But those marks also teach the living how to soften their touch. Some nights, when the house is quiet and sleep is approaching like a warm tide, the sisters stand at the window and watch a gentle light go across a field. The world outside is full of sleeping things, the distant breathing of cattle, the soft hush of a river settling. and the small, sweet blinking of a lantern from a farm. In those minutes, there is no rush. Each breath becomes a small bell, each exhale a loosening. Let your breath match it, long, unhurried, good, and soft. You might imagine the story continuing in gentle ways. Visits that mean more because they are less frequent. A friend who comes with only a nod and sits, and both sit in the silence that is praise. You will picture quiet dinners lit by lamps with blue glass shades, where salt and bread mark the evening, and voices are low so as not to startle the peace. Perhaps a good book is read aloud, the voice dipping in all the familiar places with that hint of knowledge that removes the edge from the world. In that voice, even old grievances forget to scratch. Outside on the land, the work goes on. Gardens need tending, rain must be waited for. The decision to prune a tree is sometimes as heavy as the choice of a new road. The daily acts of cultivation, cutting back what is spent, giving water where roots are thirsty, leaving stillness where growth is needed, are the same in a garden as in our hearts. To hold your life this way is to accept both the weather and the steady necessary work. There will be seasons when the clouds are big and slow and low-hung. In those times, the house becomes a sanctuary not by magic, but by effort. A pot of something warm on the stove, a blanket for the knees, and a steady voice reading the same page of a favorite book once more. Night by night, comfort gathers like a quilt. When you listen, you hear the soft stitching, the quiet promise of the next day, the small tasks done with care, the gentle apologies made and received. Once, in a kind of quiet that is now memory, there came a stranger visitor to the house, an older woman, grave and stately, whose eyes were used to giving orders and whose hands were used to being served. She walked with that measured step that says, "I have seen many things and have my own steady way of naming them." She did not come with trumpets. She came with a firm voice and with questions more than comforts. She spoke loudly, and at first everyone listened with the polite confusion we reserve for storms that visit moments. But the younger hearts were the same, steady and human. And when they answered honestly, nothing violent happened. She left, not wholly appeased, but changed, because change often arrives when we least expect it and comes as something small. A seed put in a hand. Why tell you of this stern visit? Because even in calm places, there can be moments of turbulence, sudden, fierce, and unnecessary, caused by the old rigidness of thought. And as you breathe, feel the difference between being firm and being rigid. Firmness holds a place gentle as a fence. Rigidity is cold iron. In a soft heart, there is room for truth and for correction, but also for kindness and for discovery. In the story, the stern visitor's words could not bury a new affection that had taken root through patient and gentle care. Love shaped by patience will outlast the sharp words of any visitor. days fold into weeks. There are moments of laughter that come simply from being near someone you care about. That small, uncontainable chuckle when a shared memory is recalled in a perfect, ridiculous phrase. There are longer silences that feel like music, ordered and whole. There are evenings when the curtains are closed against the rain, and one friend says to another, simply and clearly, "All is well." Those are the nights to store away in the quiet places, small treasures to be brought out in later years when the world might make a different demand of your spirit. If your eyelids are becoming heavier, let this next image sit in the space between waking and sleep. A low fire murmurs in the grate. A cat has found the chair with the indentation that says he sits here. And someone at the table is writing a letter, not one for the world, but one for a friend, or for a sister, or for the future days you have yet to meet. The pen moves in slow loops, thoughts leaving the mind as ink leaves the tip in a graceful trace. Outside, the wind sings the small country songs it has known all its life. Inside, the steady lights keep watch. All safe, all settled, where the story rests now, in that tender place between finish and continuation. The house lives on. There is the memory of the first shy smile, the slow forgiveness, the quiet wedding, the children who later will run in the garden asking about dragons and weather, and an older pair who will one day press their palms together across a table and laugh at the little things that matter most. Let your breathing match that rhythm. A long in-breath, a slow out-breath. Feel kindness descend into you like soft sleep. If there is a last thought to take with you, let it be a gentle promise that small things, done again and again with care, will build a good life, that gentle words offered without haste make a home, and that in the quiet, steady, ordinary moments, we live towards something warm and lasting. Now rest. The lamps will watch, the embers will keep their slow glow, and the story of the house will continue softly, without hurry, without claim. Sleep well.